What if what hurt you was exactly what shaped you? What if the injustice you suffered was the only path to awaken you? What if the betrayal that shattered you will one day be the reason for your maturity? Some wounds feel like punishment, but with time, they reveal themselves as tools, invisible tools that shape the soul. In the dark cave of waiting, Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold by his brothers, forgotten in a prison. He had every reason to hate, complain, seek revenge, but he did none of those things. In his final encounter with his betrayers, he looked them in the eyes and said, "It wasn't you who sent me here. It was God." This isn't just faith, it's a wisdom few attain. It's serenity. In the face of what cannot be changed, it's the power to see a plan, even when everything seems ruined. This is Stoicism in its essence: to accept with dignity, to act with integrity, to live with purpose, even when life seems to make no sense at all. Stay with me until the end of this video, because today, we'll uncover one of the deepest messages of inner strength hidden in Scripture. A short phrase, but with enough weight to sustain a soul if you're seeking clarity. Amid uncertainty, if you feel your life has been derailed, betrayed, or delayed, this video is for you. Subscribe now, because today, we'll discover the Stoic message behind Joseph's final words. Joseph was just a young man when it all began. He wasn't a warrior or a sage, just a dreamer. He dreamed big, seeing visions in his mind that seemed to come from another reality. He spoke of these visions with the purity of one who didn't know the poison of envy. But his brothers, those words, which to Joseph were flashes of destiny, sounded like arrogance, like a threat to them. They didn't see an inspired boy. They saw someone who dared to stand out. And what does the world do to those who dare to stand out? It silences them. On an ordinary day, amid dusty trails and words muffled by the desert heat, the brothers decided to erase their youngest brother's dreams. They threw him into a pit. No water, no help. The sky was his only roof, and the echo of his own fear, his only company. The pain of being betrayed by those you love is a pain without a scream. It doesn't explode outward, it settles inside. Joseph felt that pain, but he didn't curse, he didn't beg, he simply descended inward. As one who understands, there are times when resistance is silence. He was sold, like merchandise. The blood of the same father that ran through his brother's veins didn't stop them from trading him for a few coins. Joseph was taken to Egypt, foreigner, slave, stranger in his own destiny. But even there, in the depths of anonymity, he didn't lose himself. He worked with excellence, served with honor, kept silence. As one who knows time is listening, what seemed like the beginning of stability soon collapsed. He was falsely accused by his master's wife. False accusation, a double wound. Injustice is one of the bitterest tests of the spirit, because it's the pain of being hurt, and the pain of not being able to prove your innocence. And then, the prison. But the cell where Joseph was thrown didn't imprison him entirely. His body was confined, but his soul was expanding. In the darkness of the cell, Joseph didn't sink. He waited as one who knows time is not the enemy, but part of the plan. Waited without rebellion, waited without complaint. There, where no one saw, God saw. And Joseph didn't just wait, he grew stronger, interpreted dreams, offered guidance to others. Even in chains he gave light, and that is rare, because some can only offer something when they're in the spotlight. But Joseph gave even in obscurity, even in prison. Years passed, and then the moment came. Pharaoh, troubled by senseless dreams, heard of a prisoner who interpreted the unseen. They called for Joseph, and he spoke with clarity, with courage, with balance. And the throne opened. The slave became governor. The pit turned into a palace. But that wasn't the final victory, not yet. The deepest test isn't pain, it's the reunion. One day, the brothers returned, hungry, tired, fragile. They needed help, and before them stood Joseph, not the dreaming boy, not the slave, but the man who had endured the silence. They didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. And there, time stood still. It was the moment for justice, for revenge, for reparation. But Joseph didn't retaliate. He wept, and wept in silence. Not tears of anger, but tears of one who had won within. Tears of one who no longer carried poison or vengeance. And then, he spoke. Few words, but so deep they still echo centuries later. It wasn't you who sent me here, it was God. This phrase isn't just a declaration of faith, it's the essence of maturity. It's the peak of spiritual clarity. It's when you understand that even pain has direction, that abandonment can be purpose, that injustice can be refinement, and that betrayal can be destiny's precise instrument. Joseph no longer needed explanations. He had understanding. True understanding is silent. It doesn't point fingers, it recognizes paths. There, before those who hurt him, he stood whole because time didn't deform him, pain didn't sour him, waiting didn't harden him. He didn't just win outwardly, he won inwardly. And that is the greatest victory, the rarest, the most divine. Joseph understood, and because he understood, he forgave. Because he forgave, he freed, and because he freed, he was free, not just from prison, not just from slavery, but from something even greater. The weight of carrying hatred in his heart, that is true freedom. The kind born when we stop demanding explanations from life and start extracting wisdom from what we've lived. The pit wasn't the end. It was a passage. The prison wasn't defeat, it was formation. The betrayal wasn't ruin, it was the starting point. And Joseph's final words, spoken with serenity and truth, are the mark of a man who crossed the inner desert and emerged on the other side stronger, lighter, and wiser. As Epictetus would say, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters. Reality itself is neutral. It's our interpretations that make it unbearable, transformative. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, forgotten, and imprisoned. Events that alone would be enough to shape a victim. But Joseph didn't cling to the victim role. He rejected the why me narrative and chose a higher question: what for? That shift in perspective changes everything, because suffering, when carried with meaning, ceases to be ruin and becomes a tool. Seneca would call this choice the power to turn adversity into advantage. The mature Stoic doesn't flee from pain, they embrace discomfort as part of their formation. They don't seek shortcuts to avoid suffering, but find paths to grow through it. Joseph was a living example of this. He couldn't control what happened to him, but he controlled what he did with it. In slavery, he cultivated excellence. In prison, he cultivated patience. In injustice, he cultivated faith. In every scenario, he exercised a Stoic virtue: self-discipline, courage, wisdom, and justice. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote, "Accept what fate binds you to, and love those destiny connects you with, but do so wholeheartedly." Joseph didn't just accept his fate, he honored it, and more than that, he loved those who hurt him, not with blind romanticism, but with the deep understanding of one who knows life is orchestrated by a force greater than ego. He didn't forgive out of weakness, he forgave because he understood. And when you truly understand, anger loses its purpose. This is the essence of biblical Stoicism, an inner strength that needs no spectacle, a firmness that doesn't bend to resentment, a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Joseph lived the virtue of endurance, not of pride, but of maturity. He wasn't a man who wanted to appear strong. He was a man who knew how to stand, even when the ground vanished beneath him. And that is true power. What about you? Are you living in your own invisible prison? It doesn't need bars or chains. Sometimes it's a meaningless routine that traps you, a relationship that's become emotional captivity, or maybe the prison is internal, a guilt you've carried for years, a resentment that still visits you in the silence of night. Maybe you've also been sold, not literally, like Joseph, but betrayed by the trust you placed in someone, a friend who turned their back on you, a co-worker who took credit for your effort, a family member who judged you when you needed understanding most. Or perhaps your prison is time. You wait and wait. An answer that never comes, an opportunity that never arrives, a change that always seems delayed. You look around and see others moving forward and wonder, why is it always harder for me? But what if this silence is your preparation? What if this waiting is the exact time of your inner construction? What if what seems like injustice today is life positioning you in the only place where you'll truly flourish? Have you ever asked yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me? Not with bitterness, but with maturity. To be stoic isn't to turn your back on pain. It's to walk through it with your soul upright, without losing dignity. It's being able to move through the storm without becoming the storm. Who betrayed you and you still haven't forgiven? What happened in the past that still dictates how you react today? Are you ready to say, it wasn't them, it was God? Or, if you prefer a less religious lens, it was life, and I accept what it wanted to teach me. This isn't resignation, it's understanding, it's choosing not to be a hostage of the past, it's choosing not to let someone else's mistake define your essence, because in the end, we all walk through deserts, but not everyone emerges transformed. Joseph did, whole, strong, free, and you? Will you let this pain deform you, or will you let it shape you? The choice is silent, but its impact lasts a lifetime. The wise man doesn't choose the easiest path, he honors the one given to him. Joseph didn't ask for shortcuts, he didn't demand explanations, he didn't seek justice with his own hands, he embraced the silence, like one who understands that God's life's timing doesn't rush, and in that silence, he was molded. Pain didn't destroy him, injustice didn't poison him. Waiting didn't embitter him. He became more than Egypt's governor, he became master of himself, and that is the rarest freedom of all, to be free within, even when everything outside seems to confine. That is the power of honoring the path, not the one you wanted, but the one life gave you. If this story touched something deep in you, if it awakened a memory, if it rekindled a hope that seemed lost, then consider following this channel. Here, every story isn't just told, it's felt, it's offered as a silent compass for those walking through invisible deserts, because some truths don't shout. Some lessons don't force themselves, some paths only reveal themselves in silence.